Sword versus swordsman. What is the most important factor in the fight? The skill of the swordsman or the sword that they're using? Last time we did this experiment, we focused mostly on reach, and we found that reach was a huge determining factor. So, for reference, I am a fairly skilled swordsman. I've been doing this for quite a while, with a bunch of different weapons. Ray is brand new at this, only having a couple of lessons, and we're trying to see what's the most important factor. So this time, we're going to look at 2 implements versus 1 implement. So we're going to do a mix of dual short sword and shield against a longer weapon. Now, we are not going to be doing rapier and dagger versus a long sword because the rapier is essentially as long as a long sword, so that takes length out of the equation. We've already done an experiment on rapier and dagger versus long sword. You can go see that in our videos, and we found that rapier and dagger has the advantage because 2 weapons, one of the same length versus one, generally is just, it's going to be more effective. Though it wasn't a total wash, it was still pretty close, but the rapier did edge out. So let's take a look and see if we can even this out, the length difference, by adding a second implement to the equation. So we're going to start off with buckler or shield and a short sword versus a long sword. Last time the short sword did not fare well against the long sword, even when it was in my hands with more experience than Ray, but let's check it out. Ready? All right, fence. I think I got that one.
Yeah?
Yeah. Oh, this is so much better. Got that hand, and you wouldn't have been able to make that attack.
True.
Got that hand. I'm able to close more confidently than I was last time. He has to worry about where this is blocking. I got really tangled up, and he did actually kind of hit me in the nuts. But it was the flat of the blade and it was slight, so I don't think it would have done much. Man. I got caught. That was weird. I got caught on my own elbow guard. That was dumb. All right, ready? Yeah. You slapped me with the flat. I was gonna say that was a thrust, but it might have caught because this isn't sharp. It might have caught in me, but it's hard to tell on that one. Yeah, that was my leg. Though, I would have been able to deliver that cut, so. Is that guard?
That's guard.
Okay. Too hard?
You can.
This changes everything. Alright, a couple more. And I'm able to engage and then attack. Now, with this, I am a little bit more, we'll talk about it later. And, alright. Alright, let's switch. Okay, so now we're going to see if previously that's just because I know how to use buckler and short sword, or if it's because it makes a big difference. So let's go. Ready? Fence. Got that arm. Got that head. I got that leg, and yours is very light. Got him. Got that arm on the way in. He did poke me a little bit. The question is, so I got him really good in the crook of the defending arm. And I kind of sliced up his middle, but not very hard. He could have still delivered that cut, possibly, that thrust. I wonder, though, about the pain. It wouldn't have disabled that arm, but I don't know. So, possibly a double. So reach on this thing. Got that leg. was mine. I got that arm again, but he stabbed me. His stab was very light and it was into my ribs. I don't think that would have been a mortal wound on me, but it would have hurt a lot. Head. Get a protect better with that thing. Got it. Got it. Got your hand with that one. Got that one, yeah. I did a little hop back because I'm so used to him trying to stab me. I think this is pretty concise. So let's talk about it. Yeah, this is interesting. So, I think I was ahead on both of those. So, when it was single short weapon versus single long weapon, we found that my experience was not able to overcome, or at least not decisively able to overcome, the reach difference we have with longsword. So, single long weapon versus single short weapon, the long weapon definitely has the advantage by a lot. At least from our experiment. We're going to come back to it. It's not conclusive, this is just our findings. But, so short weapon and parrying implement, shield, short weapon shield versus long weapon, in the hands of an experienced person, I was able to beat you. It wasn't completely definitive. I did get hit. Again, I'm not an expert with the shield, if I'm honest. I'm better with like rapier and dagger than I am with rapier and buckler. But I was still able to, with the experience I do, I have a good amount of experience. I'm like talking myself down, talking myself up. I don't like calling myself an expert ever, but I have a good amount of experience with buckler. So I was able to be fairly decisively beat you when I had the buckler and the short sword. Then we switched it around, and when I had the long sword and he had the buckler and the short sword, he was not able to win. And I think this comes down to the complexity of two weapon fighting systems. It is something that takes a significant amount of training and coordination to understand. It's not something you just pick up and do. Being able to coordinate the defending hand and the attacking hand at the same time is difficult. So a lot of times Ray struggled to be able to bring his shield up. I got him in the head a lot. When normally he would have been able to parry with that short weapon, and he did last time, he was able to make parries. This time, because he had two weapons, did it feel like you were overwhelmed or overloaded?
In which I wasn't used to using those ones. Like, in the shield is a buckler. If I was to be honest, I'd be more used to using like a bigger shield. So the buckler was a little bit different for me because I don't know how to use it as well.
That's fair, it's fair. So some of it comes from the inexperience of being able to use that. If he had a bigger shield, possibly it would have been a different story. So an interesting outcome. I honestly, again, I didn't really have any expectations going into this experiment. It's just something I wanted to figure out. So, interesting. Two weapons in the hands of an experienced person beats, not always. This is not conclusive. This is just a data point. But in this situation, it beat one person inexperienced with a longer weapon. Flip the tables, a person with experience with a longer weapon beat someone inexperienced with two weapons. So let's continue going, and we're going to try two weapons, two swords versus the long sword. Let's go. Okay, so now we're going to test out two smaller weapons versus one longer weapon. Again, we're not doing long weapon and short weapon versus long weapon because we've already done that. I'll link that in the description or right here in the video. Two short swords, one long sword. Let's figure this out. Fence. You came in a little bit and got a little bit there, yeah. Nope, you missed. It would have been thrust if you make it. I'm having less luck with this, actually. That was mine. Got your clip. Don't say it flat. Yeah. Not doing so well on this one. Maybe I just don't know it as well. That could be a thing. A little clip here. Did I get your hand?
Yeah.
Okay. Come on. There we go. Double. Come on. Flick, I wouldn't have counted that. Right. Not enough on that one. You got my wrist. Was that the flat or was that not?
It was right here.
What?
You hit my hand way down.
Did you hit my wrist?
Yes. Or I thought it was somebody arm.
Was it flat or was it the blade?
It was the blade.
Okay. Probably double. Yeah. This is not as good as the shield so far. Mine. Mine. Yeah. Distance has become another big problem. I don't have as much of a thing to block here with. Yeah. A little bit. Nope, neither of us. Mine. You hit me a little bit in the thigh, but it wasn't very powerful. Mine. Yeah, yours. Mine. Got your hand there before that second exchange. You touched.
Yeah.
It was so light. I'm thinking it could have just been the mask. I'll look at the replay. It depends. That was a flat. You know, I actually wonder how many of these hits you've made. A lot of these have been with a flat. Double. Mine. You know what, honestly? I'm gonna run this a little bit longer because I will be honest, I've been using these inefficiently. I'm gonna try something. I've been using these wrong. Yeah, I took the power out of that one. You did hit, but almost not. Was that my leg or was that the flat? Okay, good. Mine. Mine. There's a lot of messing around in here where he'll kind of go across me. It's hard to determine whose point that is. This is messy. I'm not super happy with this either way. Mine. Mine, what's that?
Guard.
Guard? Mine. Maybe. We're just, okay. So, I'll be honest, there's a couple problems with this. First, you still have no preservation instincts. So Reyes,
I tried that time.
Reyes kind of a kamikaze. I don't know how this went. I'm gonna have to review the footage. I lost track. When it started, I was trying to play this more like rapier and dagger, and I wasn't doing well. I switched to do more of a Kali style with this, and started to see some more success, but it wasn't as successful. The two short swords, I like the shield better. And that could be because I have more experience with the shield. I'll be honest. Half the time what frustrated me with you is I would come in and make a clean cut, and then you just hit me anyway. So it comes down to like, I'm not terrible at this, but when you're facing someone who doesn't care if they live or die, it becomes frustrating. With a longsword, I can get away with being able to attack from a distance and stay out of his distance, but with this sword, I have to close.
And to be fair, my reaction time is not the best when it comes to sword fighting. So whenever like you make an attack, my reaction is slow, so then I go for either parry or attack. That'd be too late. You already.
Well, we'll look at the footage, and when I see the footage, I'll be able to determine whether or not my attack would have stopped you or not, because that's valid. So we're really not as successful as sword and buckler, which, you know, It is what it is. And again, there's a couple of factors there. This is why we're saying these are data points and not decisive, because it could be that because I am more accustomed to sword and buckler, I did better at it than double short sword. I do have a good amount of experience with kind of double sword training, but not nearly as much as sword and buckler. So, interesting data point. Caveat there. There's not as much double short sword stuff in European martial arts as more East Asian, Filipino kind of martial arts, which is something I do, but it is not by any means my expertise. So we're going to switch, and now you're going to get 2 short swords. Yeah. And the other thing to note about, I will say this is another interesting data point. These 2 weapons were never meant to go against the long sword. Not really. 2 short swords versus a long sword like this, I don't think that matchup really would have happened that often. I could be wrong, but this probably would have been going against, it probably would have been going against another set of short swords, or a single short sword, or a short sword and a shield. Longer weapons, not so much, not so often. Not unheard of, but, you know. All right, so we're going to switch. Thanks. Did I get you? And. Got you. I don't know though. It might be yours. Yeah. Okay. Do you feel like you could change your tactics and try better, or do you think that's what you got?
I mean,
do you think do you want to try something new, or do you think that's about what you got?
That's all I got.
Okay.
Because I tried to go with the block for both of them to the right package.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. The reason I asked him that at the end is because I know that when I was fencing, I felt like if I changed my tactics, I would have a better outcome. And I did have a mildly better outcome. And I wanted to make sure Ray had the opportunity. But it was pretty... When we were fencing, it was kind of a big trade-off. There wasn't like a clear winner or loser. Though I think the longer reach was kind of edging out. But this one, it wasn't. This one, I'm sorry, I was doing a lot better.
Well,
I mean, you're new at this, so it's fine. This isn't a judgment on you as a person. This is just like, this is what the experiment's about. This is you know, the data point we're collecting. And again, these are data points. They are not conclusions because this is a small sample size. This is mostly an experiment to see what's going on. So, in this experiment, the longsword was able to just get in there and make mincemeat of you. And I think that we saw, for me, who has experience, maybe less so than with buckler, but a good amount of experience with 2 swords of equal length, short swords, I was able to be more effective against the long sword. However, when we switched it around, I don't know if you got a single point. Just because what I was able to do was play to the strengths of the long sword, which are reach. I kept consistently out of distance, and I kept hammering him. So on this one, yeah, in both situations, an experienced person with a long sword was able to defeat an inexperienced person with, yeah. So in this situation, what I think I'm finding out in this situation, the previous situation, reach made all the difference. When it was single weapon versus a single weapon, reach was the determining factor. Didn't matter if I had more experience. The count showed that if Ray had more reach, he won, and if I had more reach, I won. When we come into double weapon fencing, now skill played a lot bigger role. Now, because I have a secondary implement, I can make up for the lack of reach, at least with the buckler, a lot easier and get in there and get Ray, whereas Ray could not, it didn't work the other way around. Inexperience with 2 weapons was not able to overcome that reach. So the experience that I have was able to tilt the tables. So in this situation, a complicated double weapon system requires a lot more skill. So you can't be a novice and pick up 2 weapons and think that you're going to do really well. You need some training there. However, picking up a long weapon with reach, or a long sword or a spear, is pretty effective against another person with only one weapon. And again, not a conclusion, just a data point. So, some takeaways from this experiment. We're not drawing any conclusions, these are just data points because this is in no way a conclusive experiment. This is just kind of an interesting thought experiment and technique experiment to see what is a more important factor, the skill of the swordsman or the sword that they're using. So, in this one we did long weapons versus 2 shorter implements, or a shorter implement and a shield. When I had the long weapon, it didn't matter what Ray was using, I was able to win because I have the experience to use this fairly effectively. Now, last time we found that if it was single short weapon versus single long weapon, the person with the long weapon won. It didn't matter if I had more experience. I am a more experienced fencer than Ray by quite a bit, but when I had just a single short weapon and he had a single long weapon, he kicked my butt. Not as hard as I kicked his butt, but that's not ego. I'm just trying to make. Ray's a new fencer. He's doing really well. But for this, when I had the buckler and the short sword, I won. And when I had 2 shorter weapons, I don't know that I won, but it was a lot closer than when Ray had 2 shorter weapons. There's a couple things that could factor into this. First, I am not as practiced, or at least not as experienced, with 2 short weapons at the same time as I am with a short weapon and a buckler. I do have a good amount of experience with this, but not as much as I do with this. So that could be one factor, that I don't have enough skill to make this as effective as it could be. Another factor could be that I chose weapons that have almost no hand protection, and there were a lot of hand hits that happened. And another factor could be, and this is one that we found around last time, Ray is still learning how to be an effective swordsman with good defensive habits, so he tends to throw himself into combat because, again, there's no real consequence for getting hit with one of these yet. He's still learning, his self-defense and his self-preservation instincts, so he tends to do a lot of kamikaze runs. So there probably were a lot of touches where he should have parried, but he decided to kill me instead. Which muddies the water a little bit, but that is part of the experiment, right? As an inexperienced swordsman, that's something he probably would have done. So I, as an experienced swordsman, need to handle that. And if I can't with this weapon, that is a mark against it. Now with this, much easier for me to do that. Whenever I had the long weapon and he had anything else, it was a bloodbath. I just won. Because I was able to manipulate this all kinds of places. I want to hear your takeaways from this.
So with the short swords, again, my biggest issue was the hand protection. There was none. Like literally, all I had to, if I tried to block, all I had to do was just hit my hand. Like there's nothing to turn my hand from this, which resulted in a lot of points in your end.
Yeah.
And also with the short sword, if I wanted to get anywhere in range with you, I had to quickly advance, and doing that put me at a lot of risk because again, the long sword is fairly nimble. So all you had to do was really just change the direction of your sword, and I was getting hit.
I'm very much a distance fencer, so I like to let my opponent come in and gain distance and really play that distance game, which is really effective if he has a shorter weapon. I completely milked the fact that I had distance on this, and I never got in his range. I never let him get in my range, and I just played him on the outside. He wasn't able to do that to me because he doesn't have the experience to do that, so I was able to use this more aggressively and get in there with the buckler. Now, another thing I think that was an important thing to do here, this is complicated. A dual weapon system is complicated. It's not something you can just pick up and do. You have to be able to think about your hands moving independently of each other, attacking and defending at the same time, using your shield defensively, or aggressively or defensively, and messing with distance. This is advanced stuff. It's not something you just pick up and do. So I think this actually confused you more than it helped you. You did have something to block with, but you don't have the muscle memory to do it yet, and you don't have the knowledge of the tactics to use, so it almost became a hindrance to you. to have another weapon. It felt like it was getting in your way more than it was helping you. That could just be my interpretation. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I mean, it was a mix of both, because like I didn't know the correct places to parry with the buckler, and I wasn't sure which direction to come at in the first place, so I didn't know where to put the buckler anyway. And when I tried to just do general guard, it kind of helped for one hit, but it didn't help for after that.
Yeah. So a couple of factors in here, and again, this is by no means a conclusive experiment. I don't consider myself a sword master. I'm a fairly experienced fencer. These are just ideas that I've had that I wanted to test out, whether the swordsman's skill is more important or the implement. In this situation, the skill mattered more because the implement can be a detriment because it is confusing. In the previous experiment, the implement mattered more because reach versus just one weapon, it was almost impossible to counter. So tell us what you think, if you like these experiments, if there's a specific aspect of swords versus swordsman that you want us to test, and we're going to go ahead and try it. So see you in the next video. Whatcha? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this or any of our other content, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Your support allows us to keep creating shorts, fencing videos, and our major projects. When you support the team on Patreon, you get access to behind-the-scenes content, discounts on merch, opportunities to game the crew, and so much more. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay up to date with all the fun stuff Sellsword Arts is doing. You can even ring the bell if you really feel like it. You can also join the community Discord and chat with the crew and other cool people with similar interests. And if you don't agree with something that I've said in one of these videos, you can always fill out the duel request form and challenge me to a duel so you can prove your point. You can find our Patreon and Discord link in the description. Additional links are in our bio. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next video.